against one. We're going to be watching Nicole Dubin on 4-color control versus Michael Miller on Rakdos Scam.
All right, so scam versus 4-color control. The more you're playing scam, the more colors in your opponent's deck, the better. So we'll see how this plays out. And Ragavan is a good start, whether you're playing, I guess, Modern, Legacy, or March of the Machine Limited.
And not in March of the Machine Limited right now, but this Ragavan is still going to be very welcome. And one of the things that this Rakdos scam deck, when its first inception came forward, wasn't really using, was trying to really just play off of the back of a lot of these kind of scam tactics. And now they've been like, you know what? Ragavan is kind of scamming the format itself. So we'll play Ragavan as well as the normal set of elementals, trying to eke out some wins. And it looks like Michael Miller has been able to do just that at 5-0 here. But that Ragavan not going to be able to scam too much here, as we're quickly taken care of by a prismatic ending from Nicole.
Yeah, and no follow-up for Michael here. So Nicole potentially able to grab the tempo in the game here with any sort of board presence here would be good. A Planeswalker, perhaps a creature playing the four-color control, but this is kind of the pitch elemental version, taking advantage of Nissa Resurgent Animist, which is showing up a lot lately. But we'll see what the opener is. But on empty board, that's what Nicole's looking for at this early stage of the game.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning you brought up Nissa Resurgent Animist as kind of the nice addition to a lot of these pitch elemental decks that were the original 4 colors. And then they really wanted to play something like Risen Reef, but they're also trying to stray away from elementals. And Nissa doesn't care about you playing elementals. So that's a great addition to a lot of these decks. But Nicole's version is also playing Elishnorn, Mother of Machines. So that could potentially be a little backbreaking if it's coupled along with some of these other elementals and non-elementals in the form of Nissa.
Yeah, I mean, really a lot of these plays. And Nicole Dubin's deck is just, in a lot of respects, going to be more powerful than Michael Miller's. But the Rakdos scam deck is trying to, not trying to let the opponent get rolling. It's just, land disruption, Thoughtseize, see how things can be prevented from even being achieved. And with Terry on the board already, this is Michael's on the back foot just to start. Okay. Thoughtseize here will reveal. Ooh, that's a lot of land.
It is a lot.
In fact, it's all land. So does Michael have a land to follow up? Okay, Teferi goes down. Okay, he does. So Michael gets the thing situated and probably in a better position than he deserves to be in, as Nicole is just running on lands here, playing off the top.
Ooh,
and the top delivers.
I mean, it be like that sometimes, and luckily for Nicole, this Omnath showing up at just the right time, avoided the Thoughtseize, top of the deck, hanging out and being a good friend for Nicole here, as Michael's gonna hope to draw just as good to now have to keep up with. I mean, the handful of lands doesn't ever look bad when you have an Omnath in play.
Sure, that's true. And the problem for Michael is, I mean, what in his deck is equivalent to an Omnath? I mean, okay, there's a removal spell, sure, but that's, playing just straight up a 2-for-1 in Nicole's favor. And if that happens too many times, Michael's going to find himself just 2-for-1 out of the game.
All right, top of the board, still doing it good for Nicole, who previously had all lands. Omnath is gone, but Teferi is here and able to at least allow us to draw a few more cards to get out of that very land-heavy hand. And speaking of having a land-heavy hand, it looks like Michael has missed 2 land drops and now finally has one to start getting back into the swing of things here, but does have quite a few pieces of cardboard in his hand. So we'll see what this land is going to end up equating to.
All right, where is he? Okay, it's a hardcast Grief. That's maybe it'll find something in hand. As we all know, Nicole's got a couple of land left at minimum. But even if there's nothing, the Grief can attack down the Teferi next turn and allow Michael to restabilize. So
Yeah,
we shall see.
quickly.
We'll wait to fetch land and then presumably get to take a look here.
Mhm. Would presume, unless we're playing something like Surge of Salvation. I don't know. We saw it last round. It was in a hammer deck, but it's a card that I feel like I keep on repeat seeing across multiple formats over the last week or so that has proven to be extremely impressive. And I feel like every time somebody plays it too, uh, people start making jokes about it. They're like, "Oh, Surge of Salvation," but it's been so impressive to me. And now in this spot, the thing that's going to be impressive is this Leyline Binding, the only thing in hand that isn't that set of lands. And of course, the top of the deck still extremely strong for Nicole and Nissa Resurgent Animist into play.
Yeah, that's certainly a nice one. Nicole passes across the board to Michael just to make sure, asking, do you know this card? Do you
Do you
know
know how
this one?
messed up this card is?
Yeah.
Just wondering.
All right, so Nissa Resurgent Animus, you can see there on the screen, landfall, make a mana of any color, and then secondary landfall, or, well, can I say that? Secondary landfall, is that right? I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I think we all understand what you mean by saying that. So,
well, often people understand what I mean, but that doesn't mean I'm speaking correctly. But anyway, second landfall here looks for an elf or an elemental, which we're playing modern here. I mean, this is not too much of a stretch to ask for two landfall triggers in a turn.
nope, not at all. And considering that Nicole immediately is able to follow that up with two in the form of that windswept heath, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and now we get to start looking at the top. And hey, what's an elemental? Solitude. All of those pitch elementals work very nicely with this newly printed Nissa.
Yeah, that is a pretty solid turn. And for Michael, again, has played, removal and discard spells and all the time trading, at a disadvantage to Nicole's cards. And even though it's Nicole's kind of trying to flood, the deck interactions are just working in her favor. And okay, Animus gets taken out again, but pick up a free Solitude. And yeah, this is it's going to be a tough battle here.
Yeah, this is weird. It feels like Michael has drawn pretty much the entire removal side of the Rakdos scam deck and is forced to play fair. And I think at this point, if you're trying to play fair with Rakdos scam, your fair is just not nearly as strong as the 4-color controls version of fair.
All right, so here's another grief. Once again, we get exiled on coming to play. And let's see if once again it's going to be just land in hand. Yes, indeed. Temple Garden and Bosechu. So Michael, yeah, now under pressure. What are we even hoping for in Michael's shoes here? I mean, there's no equivalent to this really. It's things like Kroxa, Fable, Voidwalker, Pyromancer. These are all good cards. So far, he's drawing more on the removal half of the deck, and that's just not getting the job done at this point, which maybe is the whole idea here.
Yeah, that might be the case. I think this is just one of the unfortunate shortcomings of a lot of these Rakdos scam lists is that you're not super able to keep up with a lot of these 2-for-1 cards if a deck like the 4-color decks are able to get to that point. And so it's an unfortunate place to be for Michael now, especially with only one card in hand. This deck is looking to kind of play multiple cards on the extreme early turns and then be able to go off from there. But Fury, not too bad of a draw, at least going to be able to stop some amount of pressure. Unfortunately, it isn't able to really finish off any of these planeswalkers, however.
Yeah, no, Fury's going to come in and knock out the Ren 6 here. So that's
Okay. I guess we have double strike. We don't need to worry about the Solitude getting in too bad.
right. No, yeah, the Solitude's kind of covered just by the Fury itself. And so choice of Planeswalker, I mean, taking out the Ren 6 makes some sense. It's not like Teferi's going to bounce the Fury here. That wouldn't do much for Nicole. So, okay, maybe this was maybe one of the better possible draws for Michael here, but all it does is keep him from being buried. It doesn't exactly put him in the lead. And the Solitude's going to be bounced here. Nicole able to redeploy, pick off the Fury, And Michael's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty good.
It is, in fact, pretty good.
Back in the day, we used to do that with, Jace and Snapcaster Mage, but Teferi and Solitude, that works pretty good also.
Joe, times they are a-changin'.
Yeah, I guess. All right, here's Dauthi Voidwalker. That's a nice card. Cannot block the Solitude. Also can't be blocked by the Solitude. So I guess maybe the Teferi is vulnerable here, but
well, just
yeah.
as you say that, Prismatic Ending says vulnerable, don't know what that means. And this is something that, I mean, it isn't going to likely matter in this game, but I think is kind of a fun inclusion in Michael's deck, which is that Shizo Death Storehouse.
Mm-hmm.
It is a kind of cool inclusion to this list that gives the Ragavan an extra little bit of oomph in those early turns, and so I think it's kind of cool to see it once again, considering that Michael has one card in hand, a bunch of lands against Nicole's surmounting board. It's likely not going to make too much of a difference this game.
Wow, now that's a vocabulary word. Surmounting, nice.
I picked up a few at the mocks yesterday. What can I say?
All right, Seasoned Pyromancer into play here for Michael. We'll pick up one token and look to find something here to help out.
Ooh.
More Furies would be delightful.
Oh, yeah. Not too bad of a start, though. Certainly a way to at least start digging yourself out of a bad place in the game. That's a Kroxa.
Okay, Kroxa is good.
Yeah, not too bad of a card.
Yeah, Nicole has been sitting on several additional lands for, the entire game. We'll see if she has exhausted that supply in hand or not. I wouldn't think so, as the potential landfall trigger cards are going to leave Nicole incentivized to keep lands in hand anyway. Yeah, Kroxa just pick off Misty Rainforest, but it is a bolt.
Ooh.
At the very least.
Oh.
And okay.
Ouch.
Well, there's an Ephemerate on Solitude and wipe out the Seasoned Pyromancer, and everything is just working out well here for Nicole this game. That's a 1-up Ephemerate. And that looks like the Endurance being blanked, wiping out the graveyard, so Kroxa's not coming back.
Yeah, a whole lot of rough run-ins. It just feels like everything that Nicole has been able to either draw off the top of the deck or draw multiple cards off the top of the deck has just been exactly what you're wanting to see. And as you mentioned, there are quite a few like 1 or 2 of, so just being able to have this amount of selection either between these things like the expressive iterations or draws in other forms of this deck have just proven to make it pretty potent.
Yeah, so Nicole likes some card advantage to go with her card advantage. So expressive iteration gets cast, finds another Ren 6, and Michael, it's up to you.
I respect him a lot for having even stayed in it this long. I like I would have, I mean, I guess it depends on the place. If I was on a feature match, I probably would stay in it too.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
if this is online, I'm like, see ya.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too. I mean, this is closed deck list. This is game 1, so Michael might be playing it all the way out to gain whatever information.
Damnation in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's for example, we saw one Ephemerate. If you see a second one, then there's at least 2. Whatever you can gather from the last few elements of the game. But okay, we are done here now with game 1. Nicole Dubin picks it up pretty thoroughly, trashing Michael in game 1. Let's go ahead and look at some deck lists and see what answers Michael may have, as that looked a little rough.
It did look a little rough. How do we feel about some Blood Moons? This looks pretty different from a lot of Rakdos scam lists that I've seen recently. In the fact that a lot of Rakdos scam decks I've seen as of late are playing Blood Moons in the main, and Michael saying, I'm not really interested in that. I'm going to keep my Blood Moons in the sideboard.
Right. Yeah, that is certainly something that conceivably could come in. I mean, there are going to be basic lands in Nicole's deck, but still, even just shutting off, even if the mana does get assembled, which is no guarantee, the shutting off the fetch lands does stop some of the landfall triggers. Okay, so we've got Unlicensed Hearse, Engineered Explosives. Sheoldred the Apocalypse seems okay. Nicole drew a lot of cards, although not all of the card advantage is card drawing. Tourach, Dread Cantor, dodges a lot of removal, Terminate, and a Fatal Push. So there's a few things to work with here, but Michael's going to need maybe several quality upgrades here. Is that the game one wasn't real close?
Yeah, I actually hadn't even really thought about the Tourach Dread Cantor, but considering that a lot of the removal that we did see were things like the Solitude, the Prismatic Ending, and the Leyline Binding, I think that
Mhm.
that's actually kind of a great inclusion, and we've got two of them. So hopefully that's going to be something that Michael Miller will be able to find a little bit of success with.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at Nicole Dubin's 4-color elemental-ish control deck here.
Yeah, I would definitely be calling it control over elementals now, especially now that you're not playing Risen Reef.
Yeah,
I
but
feel
we
like
just substituted Risen Reef for Nissa, Resurgent Animist. I mean, it's the
for
same
an
kind of
easier to
thing.
cast card, I guess it's a
Yeah.
mythic compared to an uncommon, but it's still, I mean, I feel bad for Risen Reef.
Well, I'm sure someone in the tournament is still running Risen Reefs, maybe alongside Nissa,
Yeah, the
Resurgent
people who
Animist.
couldn't get themselves copies of Nissa before the weekend, they're still
Perhaps.
on Risen Reefs.
Okay, we can see there a couple singletons, Endurance, Ephemerate, both showed up in game one. 2 Elish Norns, as you pointed out. In the sideboard, all right, Force of Vigor, Engineer Explosives, Flusterstorm, Chalice of the Void, Endurance, and then some one-ups. Bostacia, who endures Path to Exile, change the equation, Ether Gust. No real home runs here, but I'm not sure that Nicole needs home runs. She just
Yeah.
needs some stuff to fill out, maybe trim out some less effective cards. And we're underway for game number 2.
Yeah, I kind of am in agreement. The main board of this deck seems so good against what Scam is trying to do and already has just like such a difference in generating value that I think you're just, yeah, with a few differences, things that you find.
All right. Well, Michael's lead off with a grief. Nicole's not willing to wait around to see if Michael has an effect to blink it or to avoid the to get a re-trigger. Instead, just preemptively Solitude's pitching Elish Norn, and let's see, we got 3 land. No, I'm sorry, 2 land, Leyline Binding. I'm not sure what the other card kept in hand was. And then a Ragavan. So excellent start for Michael.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to see the Ragavan do a whole lot in that first game, but in this game we had a little bit of a grief to take some of the shots coming in, as Flooded Strand going to be the sacrifice for Nicole after or in response to the trigger that's going to be happening from this Ragavan, I believe.
All right, so Nicole doesn't want to risk maybe that specific triome getting exiled, and so goes ahead and grabs it first. Is that in Dauthi, I think? And that is a one of. In fact, all the triomes are one ofs. So getting that on the board here.
Yeah, the flip from the Ragavan looks to have been that Windswept Teeth. So, unfortunately, not something that this Ragavan's going to be able to cast, but we do get a little treasure as a consolation prize, which I feel like is usually the part that people care more about anyway. So,
all right, and here's a clock presented with a Fury. 3 for 1 himself is Michael Miller to put down a 4/4 double striker, and now the pressure's on Nicole Dubin. This is 10 power on the board.
Yeah, I believe it was mentioned that the last card in hand is a change the equation for Nicole Dubin. Renin 6 going to be able to take care of our little friend Ragavan as Thoughtseize. I mean, it looked like we just had lands in hand for Nicole previously, but now it's an Omnath change the equation Leyline Binding. How are we making sure that this Fury is able to wreak havoc for as long as possible? Let's get rid of that Leyline Binding and make sure that Ren in 6 isn't going to be able to draw up lands and keep it flowing.
All right, so the Fury, maybe if there's a land in Nicole's hand, Michael has a real consideration there as to attacking face or taking out the Planeswalker. Instead, just does take out the Ren and 6 to none of the land drop. Nicole does change the equation on the Dauthi Voidwalker, and a Fury back will reset Michael Miller, as both players very shy on land drops this game.
Shy on land drops, but I'm once again, Nicole's deck kind of can find a lot of card advantage off of one thing in particular. Michael kind of needs things to stay in play for a little while, something like that Ragavan, or like at this point you want a Seasoned Pyromancer, but considering that all we have is this Blackcleave Cliffs, I worry a little bit for Michael.
Yeah. All right, so there's some uncertainty in chat on what the blue card was. So if we can change the equation up on the screen there, that was from Nicole's sideboard. That's the card that took out the Voidwalker a turn ago. Change the equation, a card from March of the Machines. You can see there, it's a 2 mana. It's it's kind of a color hoser. Counters a spell that costs 2 or less, or a red or green card that costs 6 or less. So that did get boarded in here from Nicole.
A Feign Death to allow for this grief to stay in play with Nicole at 7, just trying to make sure that we're going to be able to come across for this last bit of damage as Shizo comes into play after that swing from the grief.
Okay, so a little bit of life to work with, and very few cards, very few men on either side. I mean, this is, I guess, if Michael wins this game, I mean, this is how this deck is designed to win, right? You just kind of eke out small edges one way or the other. There were multiple massive card disadvantage plays from Michael, but the damage has come across, and Nicole down to 2.
And I don't know, this is a lightning bolt deck. I have seen a decent number of the Rakdos decks win with sometimes not even 1, but 2 lightning bolts, one into the other. So still space for Michael Miller to come into winning this game seemingly out of nowhere, but considering that we are drawing cards onto the table, not moving lands into anywhere, I feel like the body language is telling me all I need to know.
Michael's peering at each draw as it comes on the deck. Is this a bolt? Is this a bolt? Is this a bolt? And the answer continues to be no. He might also be asking, is there a land? And he does find one this time. We have a Pyromancer. No, it's a Fable. Okay.
Oh, I mean, that's at least going to hopefully be able to loot away some of the things that we don't care about in our hand.
Yeah. And hoping a Solitude isn't drawn. Okay, it's an Endurance. Michael can live with that. Nicole is going to consider, going to shuffle back all the good stuff from the graveyard, increase the threat density of the deck once another shuffle happens.
Oh, but still in a perfect form. And this Endurance able to do some attacking here as well. Fury takes care of that Goblin Shaman. And we'll see if looting away some cards in the second chapter is going to be more than enough to get Michael into a more stable footing.
Yeah, well, if you're wondering, if you don't recall from when we had the sideboard up between games, how many lightning bolts are in Michael's deck? The answer is 3, not 4.
Oh.
There's also maybe the potential of Kroxa doing damage.
Okay. That's true. There's only one Kroxa, but I guess that's like your 4th lightning bolt.
Yeah, sort of. All right, Nicole looking for anything that gains life, really. The board is, covered enough. I guess at the moment, one of those tokens could get through for 1 point of damage, but at the cost of the rest of the board, that's not going to be too much of a problem.
And this is the part that kind of feels like it hurts even more, is that now between this Fable the Mirror Breaker and this Seasoned Pyromancer, Michael's had a lot of card selection and still just either is not able to find lands or find a whole lot to follow up and try to do these last 2 points of damage.
Yeah. All right. Well, a Reflection now turned over. So I guess if another turn goes by, Michael can start copying Seasoned Pyromancer and really dig through the deck. There's a dashed Ragavan. Okay, this represents a lethal attack. And Nicole actually doesn't have anything. and Michael evens up the match. That was a very narrow win for Michael.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was starting to shake in my boots about how that was going and able to nicely put it all together. I mean, Michael was in kind of an aggressive strategy, and I guess like you have to be an aggressive strategy against this 4-color control deck. You can't just sit and wait for what happened in game number 1 to happen again. And we saw that match almost get away from Michael as the turns went further and further down the line. So being able to at least get your opponent down to 2 and then narrowly be able to take it out. I mean, congrats to Michael, because that would seem like I was like, oh no, this is gonna be rough.
Yeah, and that was I mean, that took a little courage there at the end to dash that Ragavan in also. Because if Nicole does have any sort of playback, Michael just throws the entire board in the trash. Conversely, he, like you were saying, he has to get this game over with.
Yeah.
So even though there may be some queasiness associated with going for it, he kind of had to. I don't know if we need to say the deck list again. If the players are shuffling up extensively, I guess we can. Otherwise, we just go into the table and see who's ready to take game 3. This is round 6 of 8. So the winner of this match looking good. In fact, probably locking up a top 8 berth in the Modern 5K here today. In addition to prize money, NRG points, the winner does receive an RC invite. Currently, we're qualifying for Atlanta, which I think is in November. Maybe Becky can back me up on that. It sounds right. It doesn't mean it is right, but yeah, that was kind of my. We have
something else is going on in September, so having it be in November feels more correct in my brain. But right. I unfortunately do not know. Honestly, like my last 2 months have been so crazy that I just like have not thought past the month of June.
Chat suggests it's in December. Maybe that's true. Anyway, it is sometime towards the end of the year. Of course, the next regional championship is in Dallas in 2 weeks. So yeah, the qualifying window for that is over.
17th. They put it that close to Christmas?
Yes, they did. Well, hey, maybe you can plan a nice. Let's see. Wait, where is this going to be? Atlanta in December? Atlanta doesn't get too cold, right?
I don't know.
I don't really either.
I've been there once, and I was in a convention center the whole time, so I have no clue. I don't know what the temperament of any of these cities are. I just know that they either have heating or air conditioning, and that's about it.
Okay, so game 3, ready to get underway here. Nicole Dubin on the play this game. Maybe we can production. We can correct the overlay there. Michael Miller does have a game win. We are in game 3 here.
And Nicole, this is kind of breaking my heart because Nicole is now has had this second game kind of squeak away from her, and now is really just trying to figure out how these mulligans should be going. And this is going to be putting Nicole down to 5 cards on the play.
Okay, all right. 5 is not a lot, but Nicole Dubin's deck does generate a lot of advantage. So a hand with, a few land and a couple cards doesn't necessarily stall out after, 1 or 2 plays. Michael may have something to say about that, however.
I was going to say, any amount of mulliganing that you do against the scam deck, it hurts so much more.
Yeah. All right, so if we're worried about discard, I mean, if Nicole draws up 7 cards here and it's 5 land and 2 Omnaths, you just keep the 5 land? Blank Thoughtseize? Blank Grief? Is that a plan of action?
Maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, probably. That's so hard.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Because you have to imagine that if your Rakdos scam opponent snap keeps, like you only snap keep on the play if you have Ragavan, and you only snap keep on the draw if you have a scam hand. So I feel like I would anticipate it to happen. I don't know that I would believe in my draws off the top of the deck so well. So I would maybe just try to keep a normal good 5 and hope to fade.
I suppose. All right. Nicole Dubin has found a 5 that is at least keep worthy. And here is the Flood Strand. All right, Michael Miller. Do we have some action here on turn 1?
What's it gonna be? This is the part about Modern that like is difficult. I'm excited about getting this game going, starting to get off the ground. And then it always starts with a fetch land. And all of a sudden it's hard to keep the energy going when we're like, all right, what's this scam hand gonna be? I gotta start with a Marsh Flats.
All right, is it Thoughtseize?
Well,
Okay, so the keep was 2 land, Expressive Iteration, Solitude, and Prismatic Ending. So this is actually pretty good coverage for Nicole
yeah.
against potentially a Ragavan and with some card advantage from Iteration. Michael will select the Iteration. So Nicole left with just a couple land and a couple defensive cards here.
I mean, even in the last game that we saw, Michael really highly prioritized taking out the expressive iteration from Nicole's hand on multiple occasions. So it makes sense that that is still the thought process here. From Nicole's side, I think I'm probably pretty excited if my opponent's Rakdos Scam Snap Keep was just Thoughtseize and not a elemental body to go along with it.
Yeah, that is potentially true here. I mean, there's going to be time, and this 4-color control deck with some time can build up here. Now Nicole does fetch immediately, so needing to draw lands and spells. But I wonder if there's a grief on turn 2 for Michael. But I wonder if Nicole's decision to fetch there. Looking for Triumph for one thing. Maybe the 2 cards in the bottom of the deck wanted to be shuffled back in. Would be another consideration after the double mulligan there. But here's a grief.
Yeah, with a Feign Death pitch. So that's that I feel like that spells that there's another one in hand, and you like those cards get strictly worse in multiples. And so I think Nicole is just struggling to figure out, is the call going to be continue to put myself on a large amount of card disadvantage to make sure that this grief doesn't double look at my hand? And Anissa was in hand. Oh, that hurts so much as Nicole is now hellbent.
Yeah, that's a bad place to be, as Michael will make his second land drop. So Nicole empty-handed on turn 2. But, we'll see. If there was another... Ragavan's pretty good follow-up, too, at Dash Ragavan. And, maybe this Ragavan will cooperate with Nicole and just produce some treasures, or maybe it will lead to some bad times. Because there's any number of Nicole's cards that are good for Michael just as well as they are for Nicole herself.
Yeah. Endurance exiled, can't be played off with a single treasure, and we'll see Nicole's top of the library has been kind previously.
I mean, that worked out well. Drawing the Endurance would have been a blank effectively, and Nicole does hit a third land, so that's something.
That is certainly true. And honestly, like drawing lands while you're at this amount of life, I think is pretty okay too. Like you're going to need lands to be able to cast a lot of the things that get you that card advantage back, like something like a Nissa or an Omnath. So I don't know. It's hard to say because you definitely are like wanting something that just like doesn't exist in the world of Magic the Gathering at some points.
Okay. All right. I see you, chat, and I will send over to the table that maybe that grief should not be in the graveyard there.
We're on it. As Nicole searches for a basic in response to this Ragavan.
There you go. Chat can celebrate. Did well.
You did it. Woo! Give me some pogs in chat.
Okay.
Give us a follow.
That's our Becky teaches lingo for this month.
Wait, you don't know what pog is?
I mean, I know it was like, okay, there's a blood moon. I guess we should acknowledge that.
I guess.
Off a couple treasures.
I'm unsure
Maybe
what
not.
this conversation is. Did we resolve the Ragavan flipping a spell? Great question. We're unsure because we're trying to get this Fury onto the board, and I believe Feign Death as well. Oh, this is Nicole's Fury. I'm a little confused. Okay. I also don't really know who won this match.
That's unfortunate. That happened.
Okay.
I was finishing up the messaging with the commentator with the desk.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was Fury was pitch cast off of.
Fury was pitch
Wait a
cast off
minute.
of. Fury was one of the things that was revealed off of the Ragavan,
Right.
and then Michael tried to Feign Death it, but Feign Death puts it back in the owner's control, and the owner of the Fury was Nicole.
Right. That's unfortunate. I'm not even entirely sure I knew that you could pitch cast. I guess it doesn't come up too many times. You can pitch cast off of Ragavan, I guess. Okay.
It's an alternate casting cost, so
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. I'm not a judge. This is one where I would frantically message somebody else and be like, please help. But I mean, there is a judge at the table. And we know watching that match.
Well, the Blood Moon being cast and then backed up was confusing here. This is not
the Blood Moon was going to be the follow-up to
Right.
Feign Deathing the Fury.
Okay.
But
and
we
then
were resolving the fact that Fury
Yeah.
ends up going back to Nicole's side of the board.
Yeah. So the Blood Moon had to be backed up because it couldn't be played when the Fury hadn't been straightened out yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what happened. That's not exactly the ideal conclusion to our first match of the day, Becky Bell, but what are you going to do? Really, I think we can blame it on the chat because they hadn't pointed out the grief being
something
in the wrong zone.
Wasn't going to end up mattering. That the grief needed to be.
We wouldn't have been distracted, and then we would have had a better idea of what happened there. Anyway, the result of the match is Nicole Dubin advances to 6-0. Michael Miller drops to 5-1, and it's time to roll the backup match. All right. Well, let's. Some questions in the chat still on what exactly happened there. We'll try and figure it out later on. In the meantime, we got Will Kowalczyk and Sarah Shearing playing here. Azorius Control versus Team of Rhinos.
Somebody is telling me that you used the word Riz yesterday.
Oh, I so did.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't so much that I'm saying I used the word wouldn't exactly be fair, but I did explain it.
Okay.
I think correctly based on our previous lesson. So that brings us
back
to
see, even Honorog is proud of you.
All people should be proud of me. It's tough to keep up with the lingo of the kids these days.
It is.
Yeah, and not even these days, because as this game is progressing along here, we'll try and do justice to Will and Sarah here. But yeah, so Pog. I know Pogs was like a game with little cardboard circles when I was a kid, but I didn't really get into that. And I know Pogs and Poggers is something people say, and so I assume it's associated with that game somehow, but
it's not.
I've never looked into it. Anyway, we got Shredder's Agent into Rhinos here for Will Kowalczyk, which the Azorius Control deck has any ways of breaking up, primarily being just having it Teferi on the board, but that's not the case right now. So maybe we're kind of requiring Supreme Verdict or something of that sort for Sarah to dig her way out of this, as Will has created a board presence.
This is always so... It takes my brain a little bit of a moment when the little tag says Azorius Control, but the first lands that I see in play are a Breeding Pool and a Steam Vents.
Hey, this is good. This conversion of like how did things work, a couple years ago to how they work now as far as naming decks and mana bases. That's the way I feel with terminology from Pogs meant a card game, or not a card game, a little circular disc game. And now it means something else that you're going to explain to me later on. Meanwhile,
Will
Game
was
one
able to
ended.
get it. I
We're being
mean,
yelled at to pay more attention to the game, but I don't know. I think we're having a good time. I think chat's having a good time. So, I think we'll just live with it right now. Anyway, let's
that was like a hard match as well. Like we got to see just like the quick cascade into the rhinos, and the rhinos be able to do more than enough, while the Azorius player, as we astutely did point out, had no white mana.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So my long-winded, off the rails explanation from 15 years ago, or 25 years ago, whatever, was actually, I was talking about the game. Let's look at the deck list here. All right, Sarah sharing Azorius control. As Becky points out, a couple off-color lands here just to make Leyline Binding cheap, and maybe for some sideboard cards. In fact, not even really for sideboard cards. This is actually straight up blue-white control.
Yeah, I kind of am interested in the fact that there's 3 Chalice of the Void in the main. I doubt that they're going. Well, I guess you could play those chalices for 0. So never mind. Those are definitely staying in here. So kind of a cool inclusion. Unfortunate that it didn't come up for Sarah in this first game. But I imagine that is going to be something that we'll be looking for as we play against Will Kwachik's Teamer Rhinos list. This looks pretty standard, and we're really following along the Oliver Tomiko thought process of play 4 mystical disputes in the main board.
Sure, yeah, 4 mystical disputes, and then the one of Become Immense also to try and get a win slightly ahead of schedule. So even though Sarah's deck is very well set up game 1 for this matchup, still need to do a lot of work here after boarding. And Will, what does Will have to deal with the hate cards? Well, there's Force of Vigor for Chalice. There's Boseiju, I guess, for Chalice. Not so many direct answers
to run with those.
To Fairy, except for, as you pointed out, this full set of Mystical Disputes main deck. So
True.
Yeah. We'll see how this plays out. Game 2, roll it.
All right, quick start here. And something that I always find comforting is when they have to play their Crashing Footfalls in a fair way and say that it takes until turn 4 to make you 2 rhinos. So that's the first turn for Will, while Sarah just trying to fix some of that mana up.
All right, so the Rogan Triumph there, decreasing Leyline Binding's cost. But for Sarah, it's really, there we go. I was going to say, it's really about the anti-cascade permanence, and Chalice of the Void is a good one, and is in play here. And now we'll have to concentrate on that, as that's, a primary obstacle to his deck functioning.
Yep. And as we mentioned, something that was going to be important. So Sarah already off to a much better start than the last game that we were able to catch that lasted what felt like only moments. And now Will at that pivotal 3 mana point. Unfortunately, this Crashing Footfalls that is on suspend looks a little bit rough in the face of this Chalice, but we could be spending this turn to try and get rid of this Chalice and then set up a nice little double whammy turn coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. All right. So as we talked about, there are, the probably the cleanest answer is Boseiju, which isn't counterable in any way. And there's another problem for Will to have to deal with. So we'll see if there's a mystical dispute available to keep this off the board. There almost has to be. With the return cycle remaining, okay, it's a hard cast endurance.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, throw some things back in my deck, but have a way to hopefully attack. Unfortunately, Teferi just says, actually, no, please go back to hand.
Yeah, okay. So how realistic is this to resolve this Crashing Footfalls? Maybe Fire Ice on Teferi and then Boseiju on Chalice? That could do it. That would require Will having another land.
Yeah, and this is an unfortunate situation because the Teferi, you are forced to just spend your whole turn doing it, and then Sarah will get another chance to, likely with Will's shields down, set something else back up to put an end to this Crashing Footfall. So a rough place to be for Will at first blush.
Yeah, okay. Blood Moon comes down. So Will's going to give up the Crashing Footfalls, Although that may have had a choice, that may have just been something that he couldn't avoid. But now Blood Moon down and Sarah Shearing working with an island and 3 mountains. And as we saw in the deck list, well, Red Mana doesn't really cast any of her spells. So there's the Fire Ice, take out to Fairy, and now just Will just needs a creature.
Yeah, a creature, but unfortunately that turn 1 Crashing Footfalls. I guess like the nice part is you only ever spent 1 mana on that Crashing Footfalls, so 1 mana to have like nothing happen isn't exactly the worst. I mean, I get that it's not ideal, but it's at least not the worst thing that could happen. And now we're focused solely on seeing if we can get rid of this Chalice the Void and start getting these value engines rolling a little bit.
Okay, so pace of play slows down here. Both players consulting their hands, figuring out how they want to manage. What can they even accomplish with this Blood Moon on the board? All right, choices made. Petty Theft. We'll
what a good card.
Board. So that means it's go time for Will Kowalczyk.
Yep. Speaking of go time, Violent Outburst is a great way to get the ball rolling. I guess, do you get the ball rolling or do you get the rhinos rolling? I don't know. You could pick whichever version.
You get the rhinos like stampeding. They don't roll. They're not. I mean,
so a group of rhinos is actually called a crash, which I think makes the name of Crashing Footfalls that much more entertaining. You know this. I found this out actually.
I know this. I'm waiting for your explanation of how that has anything to do with the fact that they're rolling now.
I think it's really funny. Have you you probably haven't seen the video of all of the zoo animals that are circles and they all just roll.
It's pretty safe bet.
It's this little animated short. I'll have to send it to you. It's hilarious, and that's what I'm thinking of now. As there's a whole lot of rhinos rolling across the board and doing some attacking to Sarah.
All right. So the first 2 rhinos come across for 10 because of the Violent Outburst, and with facing down a squadron of 4/4 tramplers there, Sarah Shearing suggests that they just go to game 3. No, that's not true.
No, that's
Sarah lost game 1.
It.
This match is over with. Yeah, Will won game 1. So Sarah Shearing, that's a tough beat. That's a matchup where, I mean, no matchup is 100%, or most matchups aren't even 80%. But that's a matchup certainly that Sarah was probably favored in on paper going in, and comes up on the short end of it there. Will Kowalczyk advances to 5-1. Congrats to him. And okay, so that's going to conclude our matches for this round. Let's go ahead and look at our upcoming events.
Let's see.
If you want to mark your calendars, your digital notebooks, whatever it is you do to keep track of your schedules these days. June in Mundelein, Illinois, June 24th and 25th, a 10K Modern and a 5K Legacy. So the Legacy community still vocal, still speaks out. Nerd Rage would like to cater to you, offered up some events. Here's the first one this year, 5K Sunday Trial. It says the 10K Modern Showdown, though, a direct invite to the end of your championship. July, St. Louis, 8th and 9th. Saturday Team Showdown. All 3 players of the winning team will get invites to the championship at the end of the year. And Legacy, 5K on Sunday. Finally, concluding the summer schedule, Detroit, August 12th and 13th. And back to kind of our more, I was going to say standard formats, but I can't use that word either. Here at Nerd Rage Gaming, a Modern 10K on Saturday, Pioneer 5K on Sunday. So if you want to make your way out to those cities and play, we'll hope to see you out there. If you want to make appointments on your schedule, you can follow on Twitch and receive notifications when we go live. If you enjoy the commentary, we appreciate you being here. You can hit the follow button, you comment in chat, tell us how ignorant I sound and how beautiful Becky is. And when we come back from the break, maybe Becky will explain to me what poggers means. This is Nerd Rage Gaming. We'll be right back.